Welcome back to another episode of Bad Lit Friends, the podcast that still barely knows what it's doing. I'm your host, Kirk Rafferty, and this is my co-host.
Hi, I'm Meagan Thompson-Mann, and this is our 20th episode.
Yeah,
They said we couldn't do it. We did it anyway.
we did.
That's why they pay us the big bucks. By big bucks, I mean no bucks. So today we are talking about tropes, literary tropes. And we're going to handle this the same way we handled our 10th episode, I believe, about writing rules, where we ranked them and said which ones we thought were great, which ones we thought were trash, which ones we thought should just, die in a fire, mostly because we like to argue with each other about things that we actually mostly agree about.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun doing that one.
We did have a
So
lot of fun.
I'm looking forward to this format. This is a fun format.
It is a lot of fun. So let's do some updates on where we are with our writing. What you
Sure.
doing?
So I am I'm sort of still outlining, and I've also begun writing against the parts of the outline that I kind of like. So I'm going back and forth on it because I'm really itching to write this story. The middle and well, the middle is pretty fuzzy for me. I have a pretty good idea of how I want to end it. I have a pretty good idea of how I want to begin it. And so that leaves me with some opportunities to write. And then I'll just keep working on that middle part of my outline
You
until
could
it all
just
comes together.
wave your hands repeatedly and no one will notice there is no middle in the book. I promise
Well,
you this
well,
will work.
that's probably how it's gonna end up, yeah.
I do know the general idea of the plot of this book, and I am super looking forward to it. Even the middle, even if it's all hand waving, but
I
it
really
sounds
like
great.
this idea, and now that I've started writing it, like, it feels more than an idea, because 'cause I'm starting to kind of get acquainted with my main character, with some of the secondary characters, and it's starting to come to life, which is really cool. So, yeah, I'm excited about this. I can't wait to, I can't wait to see what happens.
I can't wait to torture myself and all of my characters.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Oh, they have no idea.
So I had my writing group this week with Ann Wells, who was on the other week with us,
Mhm.
and Dora and Rebecca. And we had such a good time. I had two chapters to present to them. There actually is a chapter that is in between the two chapters, but I didn't finish it. So I had to kind of explain like how did you get from point A to point B? I'm like, aha, you have to wait for chapter 14, it will come out. But we talked a lot about how I need to make my villain more hateable. They're like, "No, make him worse. Make him"
Yeah.
the word I used with you when we were talking about this is it's insidious, his evil, where he can come across as being very reasonable and very measured, and his creep into the main character's life is so slow. But they said, "Faster. Make it faster. We want him to be horrible and creepy." I'm like, "Okay, I can make this worse. I can definitely make this man worse without
Good, good.
pushing him over the edge into caricature." That's the hard bit, which is actually kind of a good lead into what we're talking about this week with tropes, right?
Mhm.
Like what's a trope? Right? I think the easiest way to think about it is, and I kind of struggled oh, everybody knows what tropes are. But what I scribbled down for myself is that a trope is essentially it's shorthand in storytelling, right? It is narrative elements that are very familiar to readers and they assist readers in quickly understanding and recognizing dynamics in a story. That's kind of it. So things like, the hero gets the girl, or they're the chosen one,
Mhm.
things that we are the hero's journey. Even it is, I mean, on a larger scale, things that we are so used to thinking of as architecture for stories that they almost become invisible, like in the studs in the walls.
And shorthand is a good way to describe it because it really is it gives it gives writers and readers a shared language, right? So if
Mhm.
I say, you know, cozy mystery, we all know what I'm talking about,
Yeah.
right?
So, the thing about tropes is that while they're really useful, and I think most writers rely on them in one way or the other, you can also use them as crutches. So the question is, not only when is it appropriate to use tropes, but also like which tropes, and this is what we're really focusing on here this week, is which tropes are we totally over and which tropes are like, you know what? I am always going to support this because it is a really good framework for a story. So we're going to disagree with each other, and we're also probably going to be frequently wrong in your opinion. That's okay. Just keep listening to us. Their tropes aren't inherently good or bad. You're looking for how the writer executes or kind of like tacks up walls on the studs. So
Yeah, and I guarantee that at any point where I say, "Look, I am so over this trope," or, I don't enjoy this trope, I guarantee there's a book out there with that trope in it that I would like. So, I mean, I'm gonna even disagree with myself.
that's okay. Nobody listens to us for consistency. So let's start with romance because romance is, there are so many different tropes.
Oh, there's so many. And when you talk about romance, like, we're not talking about, like, the romance genre, we're talking about any book that has romance in it, right?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. It can be not just a romance novel, but romantasy or, general fiction or women's fiction that has romantic overtones, fantasy with
Yeah,
romantic
yeah.
overtones. It could be anything. But these are tropes that have to deal with love relationships, generally love. Occasionally you find them in kind of friendship scenarios, but for the most part, we're talking about when we think about romance, we are talking about love.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
so let's start with a big one.
Okay.
And this one I did there are two flavors of this large one. Enemies to lovers and friends to lovers.
Mhm. Mhm.
So before we kick off, I'm just going to actually, I should have done this before, but let's talk about our ranking system. It's the same one that we used before. So, I mean, it's assuming that you listened to episode 10. So we've got S tier, our superior tier. This is peak. We're going to defend this one to the death or close. A tier, we love it. It's solid. It works most of the time. We've got then B, C, D. Look, you can see where it's going. And then F. Like, just please stop.
No more.
No, no more. Please help yourself. You know,
And I will say this too, when I at least when we go through this and I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking about modern fiction
yes, yes.
because there are some books that I read 20 years ago that have tropes in them, and I love these books, but I don't wanna see that trope anymore, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
just
Oh, yeah.
just caveat that.
There will be this is an entire episode of caveats. So, prepare yourself, put on your caveat, like, helmet.
That's right.
There's gonna be a lot of exceptions that we have here.
Alright, so
So let's start
enemies to
again.
lovers, friends to lovers. I'll have you weigh in first.
Okay, so I have two opinions here. Let me start with the slightly more positive one. I prefer enemies to lovers because I like to see contrast. I like to see people kind of snipping at each other, weighing in. I know we said we were going to talk about old books, but I'm going to go back to Shakespeare and I'm going to think about Beatrice and Benedict. And I'm going to think about
Mm,
how much it works that you have these two people who they just can't stop butting heads. And there is excitement that builds out of people who are clearly coming together and yet are pretending to hate the sight of each other. And
mhm,
I think it continues. I think it still is a trope that can work, but it can also be lazy because you have to build that attraction. You can't just flick a switch and go, well, there was a spark. because they hated each other. So obviously there was a big emotion that they felt about each other. You need to build into the attraction. The attraction may be there from the beginning, you can feel it, but you can't just go, like underpants gnome, like question mark, question mark. Now they're boning.
Mhm.
There needs to be something in between I hate you and I love you, or else it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you feel about enemies to lovers?
So I feel a lot the same way. It has to be done right. I'm all for enemies to lovers. Let me tell you what though. What I really love is lovers to enemies.
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a good one.
So, I'm thinking like Kramer versus Kramer, right?
Mhm.
Which is a movie, but was it a book? Maybe it was a book. I love lovers to enemies, and I don't think we see a lot of it. We don't see very much of it. So, so I'm totally avoiding the question. I will tell you, I enjoy a good enemies to lovers, but exactly with the caveat that you had, it has to be done right. It just I've read too many books where it seems inevitable,
Mhm.
right? From the very first time they meet, it seems inevitable. For me, I don't want inevitable. I want these 2 enemies to freaking hate each other's guts. Just like, want to actually do physical harm to each other. And in the event that one of them killed the other one or something, to walk away and sleep like a baby, right? Like that's
Yeah.
what I want that to start out as, and I don't see enough of that either. But friends to lovers, I'm not so interested in, and I think it's just a matter of degree. Like
Mhm.
I love the dynamic between enemies, and then so, you're
Yeah.
going from one end of the spectrum, enemies, all the way to the other end, lovers. Friends to lovers, I feel like you've come into the story and they're already halfway there,
Yeah.
and
I
so
totally
I
agree with you. I
yeah.
totally agree. It's such a gentle hill to climb that there it can as a subplot maybe, but I think if you are writing a romance, a straight romance novel, it my personal preference is a no for friends to lovers in a straight up romance novel because it's too gentle. I want conflict. I want to see things not working out. And then if you are writing a book where friends to lovers and that's all nice and gentle and wonderful and warm, your conflict is something else, and then you're not writing a romance novel
Mhm.
anymore. You're writing, whatever. So, for me, as a preference, it's a no. So
I'll tell you what I would like though, friends to lovers to enemies. So, just tack on another step from my lovers to enemies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and you could even do enemies to friends to lovers as a slower burn from enemies to lovers,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
enemies to frenemies to lovers.
I am a lover of all things very dark, and so, the happily ever after thing just I'm like, "Oh, but nobody died."
More death, more death. So
Exactly.
so this is what you wanna hear at Christmas time is about death,
Yes,
right?
more
So,
death.
yes, more death,
Alright,
more death.
give me your enemies to lovers grade.
I'm gonna put enemies to lovers at A. A minus to A. And
Yeah.
yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, I would also put it in between A and B.
Mhm.
Whereas, like, lovers to enemies, I think I'd probably throw a solid A.
Yeah, actually, that would be great.
Mhm.
And friends to lovers, I'd probably put at C, the C minus. Look, it
C
can
minus, wow.
yeah, here's the thing. I am sure it can be done really well, and it can be done. I've certainly read enough fiction where it's been, 2 people who are slowly coming together over time, and
Yeah,
it's nice. I yeah, I wanna see big emotions. I wanna see,
same, yeah.
mayhem. I wanna see people, wailing and, beating their breasts.
Yeah, Friends to Lovers gets a solid C from me. If you can pull it off really, especially if it's like if you can show like a really close, maybe very long-term friendship that really runs deep, I
Mhm.
might even pull that up into like B.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's very dependent on the hands that it's in
Mhm.
in a way that I think enemies to lovers as a trope, a straight up trope, is a easier trope to work with because it has the dynamics are much greater in between the highs and the lows. So in great hands, friends to lovers, yeah. In mediocre hands, potentially enemies to lovers, yeah. Look, I love romance novels. I've read some absolute stinkers that also but just had that enemies to lovers thing so well that I was like, I don't even care. I just really like this story. So
All right.
I'm not a snob, contrary to popular opinion. So forced proximity. Only one bed, only one elevator, only one, I don't know, storage facility.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
what do you think? What
Only
do you think
one
about that?
plank of wood on this off the sinking ship.
Yeah, yeah. What's your thoughts about that?
I'm fairly neutral on it because I'm having a hard time thinking of a novel that I've read where forced proximity was a major part of that. I'm not opposed to it. I mean, I'm going to give this blanket statement and say anything can be done well, right? And anything can be done poorly. So
Mhm,
I think, if you can pull off forced proximity well, then yeah. In fact, gosh, the more I think about it, so my current novel that is complete, is sort of a forced proximity
mhm,
of 2 people that it's not a love story, but it is a these 2 people become closer to each
mhm.
other. And it is a forced proximity in a sense. And I like to think that I did it well. And it's forced proximity because it's an on the run type novel. So the 2 people, they're on the run, right? They have to be together doing this. So yeah, I like those kind of stories. I just told you before the show, I was, reading a romantasy, which is unusual for me. So, yeah, when you get heavy into the trope, like, this is how in fact, you might get into this trope of forced proximity sets the conditions for the whatever their relation is to become lovers. I just don't have a lot of experience with that.
Yeah, it I put it in romance, but it really could be anywhere. Like, you could think about, a kidnapping victim, experiencing Stockholm syndrome.
Any road trip movie you've ever watched?
Yeah,
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 right?
yeah. I mean, it is for me, I think it's most useful as, like, a catalyst as opposed
Mhm,
to any like, a main thread, but
mhm.
something to kick things into gear. So, like in a romance book, it is only one bed and like, "Oh, no, whatever shall we do?" But, it could be like, "I'm Patty Hearst, and I've been kidnapped by this Symbionese Liberation Army." And what do you and I'm being locked in a closet and abused, it's terrible, terrible. Very
Don't give
Christmassy, I have
people
to say.
ideas.
I'm trying not to. But there are so many different ways you can take this, but I think, as I said, I think it's very good as a catalyst to get the show on the road between 2 characters who may not have anything in common or maybe set up as antagonists, trying to bring them together, but I think that it is only that, and that, again, my personal opinion only, that if you tried to base a book where this just was the same thing over and over and over again, it would get really, really dull. So, I am gonna put this at a C tier, only not that I don't think that it is a good trope, because I do, but I am putting it as C, as in C for conditional. If you use it as a
Mm,
catalyst and then you walk away and you move the story on, fantastic. If you stay in there, you're either in like a locked room or you're getting lazy.
yeah. Yeah, I think I would put it as at a C tier as well for conditional, not
Yeah.
and again, it really is all about execution, and as a trope that your book relies on, I think it can be done I think there are some very conditional situations where it does work well, such as like a road trip type thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's all I
actually,
have to
yeah,
say about
yeah.
that.
Um, anyway,
Alright, what do we got next?
love triangle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
I'm straight up. I'm gonna just say it very easy. S tier, superior, fucking love it.
Yeah.
Absolutely adore it. I have written so many love triangle stuff, like, back in my half a million word magnum opus. It is a love triangle because I just love the dynamics of how can one person love 2 people, and, like, how does love express itself in 2 different ways? And also the other way, like, how do 2 people, 2 different people find something in the same person? So it's like every and then in that love triangle that I wrote about, the 2 male poles of it were also best friends, and they had, like, their own long-standing, like, fraternal love
Mhm.
underneath it. So there are so many different ways, like little points and things kinda going
Yeah.
everywhere. Arrows, crazy, like, Charlie Day murder board stuff. I love it.
Yeah, you're not gonna get an argument from me. Everyone loves a good love triangle. So many stories have been based on it. S tier for me as well.
Yeah, good. Easy. Bam, done.
Easy. Yeah.
Bam. Grumpy Sunshine. Yeah. This is since a lot of this has become very popular since The Last Jedi, Star Wars movie. A lot of fanfic that was based on the Kylo Ren and Rey pairing, Reylo, not
Mhm.
J-Lo, Reylo. And this concept of grumpy sunshine. But it's not just that. We can keep going back and back and back where you have one character who is super happy and, just a nice person and Mr. Doom and Gloom. Even to some extent in Pride and Prejudice, even though Lizzie is not exactly sunshine all the time, Mr. Darcy is definitely just the beginning of the grump. This is a classic pairing. And yeah, I mean, they are opposites, this whole idea of opposites attract. I think it personally, I feel like it's overdone. I have read a lot of contemporary fiction that is based on this. And I'm a sound like a sexist pig for a moment, but when I enjoy it more, I enjoy it when the man is the sunshine and the woman is the grump.
Yes. Yes.
That's about
I
the
agree
only
with
time
that.
I like it because it is, and we'll talk about later, but it is subverting the trope.
It
Um,
is yeah.
so
Yeah.
it is, we don't need to see another, beautiful, wonderful, perfect girl, try and save this man from himself. We don't need that. I want to see some golden retriever of a guy, go barge into a woman's life that she wants him to barge into and then, kind of draw her out of her shell. I think it can work that
Yeah.
way. I'm also kind of over it.
Yeah, and you know what? That trope is pretty hard to write without, being demeaning. We probably have relatives or parents or somebody who, the dad is always grumpy and he's always demeaning his wife, right?
Mhm.
And that just never sits well with me. So when I see it in a book, even when they eventually overcome it or something, it doesn't sit right with me. I have seen it done well,
Yeah.
so
Oh,
that's
yeah.
not all
Oh,
of them.
yeah.
I really like exactly what you said though. If we're gonna do Grumpy Sunshine, let's make the guy, the happy golden retriever, and let's make the woman, like Maud from that 1970s
Yeah, yeah.
sitcom.
And
Yeah.
also, like, I have read, same-sex pairings where this works well because that
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of
The Odd
yeah,
Couple.
the
I mean,
Odd Couple.
they're not
That's it, isn't it? We don't know what they did when the
they're
cameras turned off.
scare quotes roommates.
Kirk, scandalous. I bet you that if I went on Archive of Our Own right now, I would be able to find Oscar Felix
Well, of course
slash
you could.
fic.
Of course
100%.
you
Look,
could.
if there is like William Howard Taft and like Calvin Coolidge slash fic out there, and there is,
Okay.
I don't ask
Okay.
me how I know.
Before this devolves too far, give me
Okay.
your grade.
Oh, great, great, great. Okay. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. So it is dependent upon what the pairing is. So I would say if it is either same sex or the man is the sunshine, I would give it a B tier if handled well and not
Mhm,
just
mhm.
yeah, so
For grading purposes, why don't we assume that it's handled well?
okay.
Because if it's not
So
handled well, I'm just gonna give it a D every time.
yeah, I'll give it a B.
Okay.
If we've got, some perky young lass and some big Mr. Darcy, rip off D,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, sorry. It's just boring. So,
So I don't think we've disagreed on anything so far. Yes, golden retriever guy with grumpy female main character, B tier probably. I am kind of over the grumpy dude and happy girl, and I'd probably go tops a C.
oh, higher than me. I see. Look, we just
Yeah.
did disagree about something. So,
Well, maybe, like, yeah. No,
oh,
no, I'm gonna stick with it. C. Yeah.
okay, okay. Let's move genres.
Good, because I am so out of my depth with romance.
Okay, so now I'm going to be out of my depth. Let's have some fun.
Excellent.
Yes. So let's talk about fantasy and sci-fi.
Let's. So so our first one is Chosen One, and I have a feeling that we're both gonna be on board with this, so I'm just gonna tell you right off the top, D tier at this point. I am so over Chosen One, and I will tell you, when I was a kid, I read so much fantasy, and I loved the Chosen One tropes. I wrote fantasy, and everybody was a chosen one. So I know of what I speak when I say it needs to go away for the rest of my life, let's say, because there's so many more interesting fantasy stories that can be written,
Mhm.
and I wanna see those. So, chosen one for me, D tier.
So here's a question to you. If everyone is the chosen one, how can only one be chosen?
There is a book, and its name has escaped me. It is about a chosen one who turns out not to be the chosen one, that it
Oh,
was a
that's good.
complete mistake.
Now see, I like that. That is more
Yeah, that's a
interesting to
good
me.
subversion of the trope.
Yeah, that's interesting. I am going to say that because this trope is not only although often found in fantasy and sci-fi, it is everywhere. It's in romance novels too. It's in, straight up just, general fiction. It is so boring. And again, like, if everyone's the chosen one, how can there only be one? The Highlander taught us there can only be one.
Mhm.
And yeah, D minus, bordering on F. I am so un with
Yeah,
chosen one, and
yeah.
not just because of that terrible author who has presented us with a series of books about a chosen one who, had all of these magical powers, and she couldn't leave well enough alone and just write her goddamn books.
How about Found Family?
I actually like Found Family. It's a classic setup for gathering your tribe in, especially if you're going on a quest, like getting
Mhm,
everybody, let's get the gang together or get the gang back together. And, it's a place where you can have a bunch of weirdos and loners come together and see how different characters can work together and how they
mhm.
can't work together. I think there's a lot of conflict that comes with it, and also opportunities to see how characters grow. So for me, I'm gonna put this at like B plus, A minus, solid for me. I really like it.
I write Found Family, and so for me, it's an S. I love Found Family. I love this whole idea that people come together, out of necessity and turn it into something bigger.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I don't have a lot to add to that. I'm a huge Found Family, fan, and because it transcends genres as well,
Mhm,
right? Like, we
mhm.
put it in the fantasy science fiction, but really almost any genre I can think of does really well with a Found Family trope.
I growing up, I like to read a lot of as a kid, I liked to read a lot of books about boarding schools, not magical boarding schools, but just boarding schools, and
Uh-huh.
those were all found family
Yeah, yeah.
situations, and having to deal with where everybody's the same age or thereabouts, and you had allies, you had enemies, you had, background fill NPCs, you had all sorts of different kinds of people, and how do you create community? And Yeah, I think it's portable and really good. So, it's really good. It has my seal of approval. So maybe I'll put it at an A minus to A. I will change my opinion. So,
Okay.
yes.
This next one, we might lose listeners.
I think you already know how I feel about this one. So,
So, I'm
go
gonna
for it.
let you go first on it. Magic
Uh,
School.
magic school. Okay. All right. So when we think of magic school, we probably most of us first think of a very large cultural juggernaut. When I first read the Harry Potter books or started reading them, it was 1999 and I thought it was great. I
Mhm,
hadn't read anything like it. um, I mean, it was very reminiscent of these kind of boarding school books, that I read, and
mhm,
clearly she read them too, where she's not that much older than I am, and I liked that, it spoke to me. I also liked the magical rules, I liked all of it. Obviously, things have changed a little bit now, but at the time, I thought it was interesting, fresh, and unlike anything I'd been reading, and I at that point was mostly reading 2 genres, literary fiction and straight up trash level romance novels. Those were the only 2 things I was reading. There's no in between, and this was something different. I really liked it. What has happened since then beyond what has happened specifically in that universe is that because it was so popular, it became like a trope in and of itself, as we said, a magic school, like, so what? Like, there are so many duplicates, they become carbon copies in a way. It's shorthand, but there's shorthand and there's laziness, and I've seen too many or, like, started too many books. I think especially during the time that I was reading that series, where I was so hungry for more that I was willing to read, like, almost anything,
mhm,
and I saw things that are like, "Well, that's just it's just a ripoff." It felt unfulfilling. Does that mean that there are not books that have done it well since? That is not what I'm saying. There are plenty that have done it well. We've actually even interviewed somebody on this podcast who has done it well.
mhm,
But I feel that sometimes people feel so comfortable in that world that they don't understand how to make it more real for readers who don't completely understand the rules of the world. There needs to be adequate world building in a magic school so that it doesn't feel like a carbon copy of every other book that you have read in this genre.
yeah.
That is me. I'm sorry. Off the soapbox now.
Okay, so my take on Magic School, and I'm gonna heavily caveat this by saying it is such a romantasy trope at this point that I'm going to abstain
Ooh.
from judging it in a romantasy context.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough.
It just because, when it's done well in a romantasy, I think it's fine. I think it's a good anchor point. And so I'm gonna set that aside. And now I wanna talk about there's not a lot of stuff out there that involves magic schools that isn't romantasy, but there are some fantasy novels that involve magic schools. And I'm kind of over it. Um I think I think there's a lot more. I mean, it has been done a lot, and again, we set this rule that we're talking about when it's done well, right? So if
Mhm.
it's done well, and I'll give you an example. There's some fantasy books out there that are around things like thievery schools, right? So schools of thievery, right? That's really interesting. I can think of like the TV series, and, actually it was a graphic novel, The Umbrella Academy,
Oh god, I loved it.
right?
Yeah.
Which is sort of that trope. It's not a
Mhm.
it's a maybe it's more of a like an X-Men type school
Yeah, I
or
mean, it's like
something.
X-Men meets Found Family meets boarding
Right.
school,
Right, right.
Yeah.
So when it's done well, it's done really well. I just think that there are more interesting stories like if you're anchoring it around a magic school because you're trying to avoid the world building of a fantasy world.
Mhm.
I would maybe try to stretch those muscles and see what else you can come up with.
Totally agree.
So, what do you give the grade? I'll
D.
give you my I'll D, okay.
I'm gonna give it a D at this point, and I and that hurts me to say that because I still love the boarding school
Yeah.
trope. I went to boarding school. I love the boarding school trope. I still love it even though I went through that hell. It actually was very pleasant, but, it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
I'm going to, and again, caveating that I'm not talking about romantasy because that's its own thing. I'm gonna give it a C with another caveat, which is if it's a straight up school of magic, I'm probably gonna say D.
Mhm.
If you've done something unique with it, like the book I was talking about, it's like a thieves school, right? Or
Yeah,
some
yeah.
other thing that separate doesn't make me immediately think of Harry Potter, I'm gonna give it
I
a
think
solid C.
yeah, I think yeah, I think the further you get away from Harry Potter, the closer I am to
The better
C.
we all are, but yes.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. Ugh, okay, what's next?
Okay, so our next one is Evil Empire, Corrupt Government. What do you think, Megan?
I'm gonna leap to the grade, with the exception of Star Wars itself. I don't like this one. Not just because I have to deal with enough evil empire, corrupt government in day to day life as an American in the year
Right.
2025, but it has been because of Star Wars, it has been overdone, in my opinion. And it is sure, it's great because you have built-in tension, you have built-in conflict. You've got a definite hero, a definite villain, and everybody's, striving and we're all going to be, good people overthrow it. I don't care. I want to see, and this is so much off of the back of what we talked about last week with Jessica Lunt. What is it like to be inside the corrupt government? What is it
Exactly.
like to be part of the evil empire? And looking at it from the inside out. That's the story I want to hear. Bless Luke Skywalker. Yeah, but it's his dad that I want to hear about. Sorry. Uh, it's my black little heart. I don't at this point, I don't care. If you are presenting to me, a Pulitzer Prize level of writing, maybe I will be interested in it, but I think generally it's a 0, nope, 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 D minus.
So you hit on exactly what I was going to say, which is I am less interested in the hero who takes down the evil empire, corrupt government. I
Mhm,
am more interested about people who are living within that evil empire and corrupt
mhm,
government and how they're managing things, right? One of the things I really liked about Hunger Games was that, and I by that I mean the first book,
mhm.
was that Katniss and her family are living under the evil empire corrupt government. And she had to go through this whole thing, right? And in the first book, she didn't take down the government, right? It was a she won, spoiler alert, she won the Hunger Games.
Yeah, we're gonna have to put in a timestamp on that one.
Yeah, yeah. So I really appreciated that. I appreciated the rest of the series less though because then it became a more of a story of rebellion, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's
And so if your evil empire corrupt government book is about somebody who has to operate within that, I'm there for it all day long. I'll give it a solid A tier.
yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, if we're talking about somebody, let's say a low-level attorney in the Nixon Department of Justice, like
Yeah.
I want to read that story. Like
Yeah.
somebody who goes in with high ideals and gets a little corrupted, but then fights back within the system. Like I am there for that story. But I don't want to hear about all these really good people who were, helping to, take down Nixon because we already know how that ended incomplete. That was not successful. But it's all high-minded. I'm sick of high-minded people. I mean, in real life, I want high-minded people. In my fiction, I want bastards. I want assholes. I want people who even I want my heroes to be flawed and incomplete and hurting individuals. I don't want, these perfect chosen one, Christ child figures. To me it's boring.
Mhm.
And, come at me, badlitfriends@gmail.com, but that's not what I'm interested in. So, yeah.
Excellent.
Okay, moving on. Let's do some mystery and thriller stuff,
Yeah,
which
this
is
is right up
again
my alley.
right up your alley. Okay. Unreliable narrators, which can be in any genre, but we often see them in mysteries and
Mhm.
thrillers. How you feeling about those?
I'm so there for it. I'll tell you right now, S tier, superior tier. I love an unreliable narrator. I love especially when we get deep into the book, when we realize that this narrator has been unreliable all along. I'm so there for that. I
Yeah.
That's all I have to say.
Yeah. S tier. Totally agree with you. I love it. I love having expectations subverted. I love being duped, but as long as the payoff is excellent. When it is clever without being clever for its own sake. I love it. I love being made to feel a little dumb but only
Mhm.
in this very
Mhm.
specific circumstance. Otherwise, please don't make me feel dumb. I already make myself feel dumb frequently enough. But I love an unreliable narrator, one of my favorite tropes. And yeah, S tier, solid, solid, solid. The Butler did it, or kind of like red herrings, where you start off being misled. Let's say.
Mhm. Mhm.
How do you feel about those?
I love a good red herring. It has to be done in a non-obvious way. I've read some books where I was like, "Oh, well, obviously this is how it's gonna go," and then it went a different way. I love a good red herring. I love when you think you've got it figured out and then you don't. I love that. I don't like it when it's handled clumsily. When you have basically led me by the nose to purposely lead me off the trail.
Mhm.
I think a red herring has to be clever.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I'm again anywhere from an S tier to an A tier.
Yeah, I would say for me, an A tier. I think a lot of that is based on why it's not an S tier for me is because I have seen it handled so clumsily that I think part of me is just like, "Ugh, it needs to be in really good hands,
Mhm.
safe hands." I think that unreliable narrators and red herrings are kind of cousins in a way. They certainly share DNA. And when I like them for the same reasons. It's because they make me feel a little dumb.
Mhm.
And for that reason, I'm gonna give it an A, but I am open to changing this, but I think I'm gonna keep it at an A. So, a dead body opening a story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love this, and let me so this is a trope. I mean, there are some literal novels that open with a dead body, like, in the certainly in the first chapter, but probably even within the first couple pages. What the trope really is that you are taking your inciting incident, which typically happens at what, like 5 or 10% of your
Mhm.
novels, something like that. You're taking your inciting incident and you are shoving it
Yeah.
into the very beginning of the story. I am so there for that too. In fact, that's typically how I write. I love just the throwing you in the middle of the action right away. I haven't written any like dead bodies opening the story, but that's typically what that trope is your inciting incident is right now. Yeah, I'm there for it. S tier, A tier. Yeah.
I agree with you. S tier. My abandoned Regency romance novel that was actually a historical novel opens with a dead body being pulled out of the Serpentine in London.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's also why I'm not writing a romance novel because that's generally not how romance novels start,
Mhm.
with a waterlogged corpse. But for me, I mean, once I figured out that's where the book was supposed to start, we'll talk more about that later. I thought this is a great way to start a book because who's this guy? Why is he there? Is he actually the heart of this story or is he just our entrance into the story?
Mhm.
It was a lot of questions, a lot of things that, I thought and as the writer, I didn't know the answer. too. So I was like, well, if I'm curious, maybe other people would be curious. I really do like a dead body opening. I don't like dead bodies in general, but opening a story, piece of fiction, yes, absolutely. Like S tier, love it. So yeah. Ticking clocks.
S tier, A tier, like, no notes. I love a ticking clock.
Mhm.
And obviously it doesn't have to be an actual clock. I mean, it doesn't have to be like time based, but something that creates urgency. Like if you don't do the thing, yeah,
Yeah.
it's all going to go bad. I love a
Yeah.
ticking clock. In fact, if you're writing mystery or thriller, you almost always have to have a ticking clock. I might be wrong about. I'm sure there are mysteries and thrillers that don't have a ticking clock, but the ones that spring to my mind always have some sense of urgency
Mhm.
uh, about it. So yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I enjoy it quite a bit. I find that you can use it in so many different genres too. It's certainly in romance. You can have things like just for the summer, right? It's like this is
Yeah,
just for the
yeah.
summer. And, what happens at the end of the summer? You know, you have a choice of going one way or the other. So not just for mysteries and thrillers. It's like it's a genuine shortcut to tension,
Hmm.
and that's what we want in our books. But, if you're writing big, sprawling, weird literary fiction, fantastic, wonderful, maybe a ticking clock isn't the right thing for you, but I think it's portable, and I like it. I think that some people might look down on it a little bit like, "Oh, that's very commercial fiction," or like, "Ew, what, like 24 or something?" Like, get over yourself. It's
It
fun. It's super fun. Allow
is.
yourself to have fun, you know? It can Not everything needs to be so serious. You can just read some trash, have fun. And there's plenty of non-trash that also has ticking clocks. Come at me, I know. So, yes, I would give it an A.
Awesome.
Yeah. Uh, let's kinda, like, run through some stuff, like, kinda fast. I got a whole big old list. We can just Amnesia. What do you think about Amnesia?
So, gosh, I'm gonna slow us down right off the bat. My initial gut instinct on this is like F tier. I'm over Amnesia. I read a book and I'm forgetting the title. Maybe I'll throw it in the show notes once I can remember it. That did the amnesia trope really well. So, who knows? But typically I'm really over it mostly because, we all know the science around amnesia now. And it doesn't work as well anymore as a trope, I think.
Yeah, it just makes me think of, like, bad plots on The Love Boat. I'm
Yeah.
seriously
Yeah.
dating myself with that reference, but
I have
I
no
yeah,
idea what you're talking about, Meagan.
I've only watched it in reruns, but yeah, I'm not a fan. I liked it as a kid. I thought it was fun, and I'm mostly not a child anymore. It is a no for me. F, sorry. Secret billionaire or secret royalty?
Yeah, and again, this tends to be a romance trope, and
It
I
is.
don't read
Yeah.
a lot of romance. I sort of wanna recuse myself, but gun to my head, D.
I am going to put this okay, and this is personal preference. I am a sucker for secret royalty. Sorry. That doesn't mean that I think that I'm gonna give it an A. Don't worry. I think it's a C. I think I think it is conditional. I also think that the reveal should in those situations should happen relatively quickly.
Mhm.
I'm not a fan of secret billionaire, mostly because I'm not a fan of billionaires.
Right.
I can forgive royalty a little bit more. It's like you didn't have a choice. No, you were, unless you married into the family and whatever. More likely you're just born into it. If you're a billionaire, secret billionaire, you have made so many horrible choices in your life. My feelings about capitalism being both the worst and best systems that we have, a system that we have at the same time applies here. No F tier to secret billionaire, C tier to secret royalty. Sorry. Um
Yeah,
um,
I'm trying to picture, like, Jeff Bezos, pretends to be one of the poors as he goes into
God.
this cupcake shop because he's just completely smitten by the owner who is way behind
Kirk,
on her rent.
Kirk,
Yeah.
these books exist. These books exist. Ask me how I know. Maybe they don't say Bezos, but they do exist. Mistaken identity.
I'm gonna
So,
give it a I'm gonna give it a C. I think it especially it especially works in, like, a romantic comedy, but I'm hard pressed to think of another genre that it works well in.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to agree with you on that one. I think especially in if we're talking about books that are especially books that are set in contemporary times, it's so easy to find out everything about everybody now.
Mhm.
It's kinda unbelievable, but then, why do we read fiction? It's to, put ourselves into, these kind of weird trance states where we can believe all sorts of things. So, I'm not a fan. I think, I'm gonna give it like a C, C plus. Like,
Okay.
I think, yeah, I think if it's for in romantic comedies, I think I would go higher than that. I think I might go up to B plus, A minus.
We
Feel
came into this thinking we were gonna disagree a lot, and we really aren't, are we?
I know, terrible. We need to
Yeah.
Sorry. Out of left field, cursed objects in, like, horror.
Yeah. You know what? In horror, A.
Yeah,
Like,
fucking love them. I
yeah,
fucking love them. So, yeah, it is to me, there's something like, the unknown and the unknowable, just the uncanny and the weird, like, just something that c especially, like, the more work a day the object is, giving it intense power to me is really interesting. Like, I don't know, like a filing cabinet, that could
sure, sure.
suck your soul out. That to me is really interesting. So when I was a kid growing up, some of our local celebrities were Ed and Lorraine Warren of Annabelle fame,
Yeah.
and they were on, local access all the time.
Man, you know what? Give me creepy dolls anytime. There's an author, Ali Malinenko. I hope I got her name right. She wrote a novel, Broken Dolls. Stephen King has fawned all over
Mm,
this novel. It is YA, and I'm freaking there for like haunted dolls
yeah,
of any kind, right? Like it just yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, I we can so cursed objects, I'm gonna give it an A.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Especially if it does cool stuff like, like a monkey's paw, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
there's something kinda warped about it. Yeah,
Mhm, mhm.
for sure.
Yeah. Haunted houses.
A.
Yeah, S.
You can't you know, it's really funny too because, you could tell me that I'm being inconsistent by saying, "Listen, no, you don't like schools of magic because they've been done, but you do like haunted houses which have been done."
Oh,
And
yeah.
I
I
just
mean,
I
back
have
to
no
ancient
defense.
times, right?
Yeah,
I
I have
mean, we've
no
got
defense for that paradox there.
when it works, right?
Yeah,
And
I love me a good haunted
me
house.
too. Me too. It's
Yeah,
probably my favorite horror trope is a haunted house. I can't resist it. So I practice real estate law, and there's a reason why I do that. It is because I love how property law combines both really dry, dispassionate things like contracts, right? Boring, boring, boring. There is something about real property that makes people go bananas in a way that they don't go about their personal property. It's like your identity gets wound up in soil.
especially
It's so interesting.
especially when you build on top of an old burial ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't had any of those cases yet. But there is something about land that speaks to our human existence. I think that we feel so
That's so deep,
connected
Megan.
to I don't mean to go that deep, but, like, it's Friday night, but there's something about our relationship to the structures that we fill with our lives and the land that we build those structures on that is it's psychic in a
Mhm.
way,
Mhm.
and it goes to our humanity, and it's very deep, it's very dark. Even when we feel very positive about the homes that we live in, there is a connection. I mean, we live in Los Angeles. Shane and I live in Los Angeles. We live in a part of the city that was affected by the fires. We live just north of an mandatory evacuation. We were in a get ready to go. Luckily, we never had to go out, but we do know a lot of people who lost their homes. And that night when I was at home, that Friday night when I was at home with Shane and we had our cat stuff ready, our own stuff, go bags ready to go, and we're watching the fires. And all I could think was, I worked so hard for this house and now I might lose it. And it was like losing a limb. This
Yeah.
concept of like they're coming with the saw to saw my arm off. And we're extremely lucky not to be affected by it physically, but mentally the scar is still there. And the connection to the house was something that for me, even though I love this house, I didn't realize how deeply I felt about this house.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's me going deep, but haunted houses for me, fucking S tier.
Yeah. Maybe you'll get to haunt that house someday.
Okay, misunderstandings that could be solved with one conversation.
F, F,
F,
F,
F, F,
no
F, 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 F,
notes,
F. Yeah,
F.
no notes, don't even do it. Insta love, it's love at first sight.
This this really this really is
I'm taking Kirk
not
out of
Kirk's
his
cup of
comfort
tea.
zone, like,
Yeah.
repeatedly today. I love this.
I I'm sorry, but it's like a D for me. Just
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. I will also give it a D. The Prophecy.
This goes right along with my thoughts about The Chosen One.
Yes.
It has been done, it's been done to death. I wanna see new things out of not just fantasy, but what am I thinking? Like supernatural, any stories with supernatural. Yeah. It's D.
Yeah. F, sorry, controversial. Just done, done, done. So, what do you think? What would you put as your high point of what we've discussed? What would you say ranks the highest of the ones that we've discussed?
It's a really good question. I think probably found family. I am a sucker for found family. Although, man, any of the mystery thriller tropes also just really do it for me. But no, I'm gonna go found family because I'm a real sucker for found family.
I'm gonna go with Love Triangle. I love
Yeah,
it. I'm a
solid
sucker.
pick. Yeah.
And what about your bottom pick or unpick?
Boy, my bottom one is probably, a
Go for
My
it.
my least favorite trope is probably my least favorite trope is probably, a tie between Chosen One and Prophecy. I really am over these tropes, and, I've read a lot of books that I remember fondly with these tropes. I
Mhm.
am one of the biggest Lord of the Rings nerds you will ever come across, and there's so many tropes in those novels that I don't wanna see anymore. How about yours? What's your
Chosen One. Chosen One is probably gotta be it. I'm over it, I don't care. So and my brain switches off. So, I remember that tropes, they're just tools, and, we touched on it before, but you need to understand what they are before you try to subvert them because subverting them is so much fun. So, everything we
Yeah,
said about the ones we hate, take that as a springboard. Take that as, a writing prompt. Like, how do I subvert the chosen one,
right. And
into
that novel I
something
was pointing
else?
out, and I still can't remember it, and I will try to think of it, but, we're basically where everyone thought he was the chosen one, and they were wrong.
Yeah.
I just love that.
How about a magic school full of everyone is the chosen one, but right? And then they find out that they're not that special. This actually sounds a little bit like high school for me. But yeah, I mean, it is again, it's we execution is really what matters here. It's not that a trope is good, a trope is bad. You can tell us to that we are full of bull pucky on all of this because there are good examples
Yeah,
and
you know what
you
I
can
wanna
write
see?
one.
I wanna see a TikTok video that just shreds us on this, that just
God.
destroys us on
Ugh,
why we are so wrong. I wanna see that. I will,
these
I'll even, like and subscribe or whatever. Yeah.
These Gen X fucks think they know everything. God, they're the problem. They're the reason why we're in this mess. Come at us, bring us your TikToks. Please, we want it. So, speaking of social media, let's talk some hot goss.
Alright, let's do it.
You brought it to me this week.
Yeah.
So tell me what piqued your interest.
So Amazon is releasing this feature. I think it may already be released for some books, not all books yet. And it's called Ask This Book. And the idea is that you can so you're reading a book on your Kindle, you can ask the book because it's connected to an AI to maybe give you some and Amazon says non-spoilery type, so it's only going to wherever you're reading it's only going to give you information from everything you've read up to that point. So you might come across a character, and you've forgotten who they are, and so you can query the book and say, "Oh, who's this character again?" And it's going to give you an AI summary of who that is.
Oh,
So
God.
that's generally what this new service is, and it is yet another thing that nobody asked for that is being foisted on not just readers, but authors because there is no opt-out.
Yeah.
As a, as an author, as somebody who owns this book, you cannot opt out if you're in the, Kindle ecosystem, which, you pretty much have to be with Amazon controlling like 90% of the e-reader market,
It's so
ebook
gross.
market.
It's
It's
so
so gross.
gross.
Yeah.
I look, I've read a bit about it. I did my own research and watched the video. I can appreciate why at least the rationale that they're giving as why it could be useful. Part of the problem is that people abandon books after a time. They don't mean to, but life gets in the way. And then how do you get people to finish books? Well, if you could make it easier for people to be reminded of where they were. You know what? There are two tools. One is called reading, what you just read. When you put the book down, you just go back and you read the last chapter or parts of it, or you skim it. The other one is if you are on an electronic device, there is a find function where you can just search for a word or, you don't remember who, Charles is. And so you just type in just the name Charles into the search function. It'll pull up the page that has Charles's name on it. And you go, oh, yeah, he was the chauffeur. Right? And often that's all you need is just the prompt in context. You don't need AI to be telling you what your brain can do just fine for you.
And here's the thing about so they're using an LLM to summarize these questions that you can ask. And as we all know, LLMs get it wrong
Yeah.
a fairly frequent amount of the time,
Mhm.
right? So it may actually just lead to confusion occasionally. If you come across this character and you want to, be reminded of who they are, it may just cause more confusion.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
again, I so my my biggest objection here my biggest objection is that they're using an LLM yet again without an author's permission
Mhm.
to give a feature that, uh, is
Nobody asked
imperfect
for.
at best.
Yeah.
Yeah, and nobody asked for it.
Nobody asked
So
for it.
and what I fear is that this is just another slippery slope. So Amazon is saying that, no, they're not training their LLM on the book. So there's 2 ways that an LLM will use data. The first way is to train on this data, and that's what the big companies like ChatGPT did when they stole all these fucking books
Mm.
and they fed it in and they trained their LLM on it. So that's training. The other thing is what anybody can do. You're sitting down at an LLM like ChatGPT, and you feed it a document, and you say, then you can ask questions, summarize this for me, or give me a bullet point outline of what this document is, or whatever. Right?
Mhm.
That's not training the LLM. The LLM is already trained, and now it's doing what you asked with this document. Now, Amazon is saying the latter. So they're saying the LLM is just taking this book as input, it's not training on it, and it's giving you this. But again, nobody asked them to do this, and so what's to stop them from then, 6 months from now saying, "And I think now we're gonna go ahead and train on these books as well."
Yeah. So right now, They might be say, "Okay, we're just feeding it in. We're not training it on it," but we don't know. I don't know, and
And quite
it's
frankly, we only
gross.
have their word that they're not training.
Yeah,
We only have their word.
and this is Amazon. This
Mhm.
is we're not talking about, like, dealing with the most upright corporate citizen out there. It is an extremely problematic corporation that I give a lot of money to, and full disclosure, I am a total hypocrite, and I do use Amazon products. I do have a Kindle. I do have a Kindle Unlimited subscription. I am part of the problem. I will not be part of the Ask This Book problem because I have a couple of eyeballs that are mostly operational, and I have a brain that is usually operational, and I can figure it out myself. And I am the reader. I am the person who is putting together this world. I am the other part of the equation besides the author. If I am allowing somebody to come in between, like, essentially, like, why do I need a priest? Right? I don't need there to be an intermediary between me and the book. Sorry. Especially not an AI.
Right, and again, as an author, this is just one more, right kind of being taken away from both the publisher and the
Mhm.
author. I'm sure the contract language is squishy, and that's how they're getting away with it. If they're getting away with that, they're going to keep going.
Mhm.
And eventually they will be training on your books, and I don't even know what else.
Which brings us to, this is a side quest from Hot Goss, but this is another big topic this week on the interwebs, which was authors need to step away from the Kindle Unlimited universe because of how
Yeah,
terribly it treats
good luck with
authors.
that.
This is it. I mean, a lot of indie authors, this is where they're getting paid. So if you can
It's
have
not a
all
feasible solution.
it's not a feasible solution until we have readers going consistently and in large numbers to other platforms. Until that happens, it is, good luck. People need to get fed.
I will tell you as a reader, I have switched over to Kobo. I have a Kobo Libra Color, and I love it, and I now buy all of my books from the Kobo ecosystem, and it's great. That's just one small drop in the bucket.
Yeah, look, you're a higher minded individual than I am. Look, a well-known hypocrite. It's fine. It's okay. It's okay.
You know what? I have Amazon Prime, so I yeah, I too am a hypocrite.
Next thing you're gonna tell me you were at Bezos's wedding. So, it's all much of a muchness, isn't it? So
I'm under NDA, I can't tell you that.
the main takeaway I think from tonight is that I think, who knows,
Everything sucks.
everything sucks. We all suck. AI sucks. Tropes don't have to suck unless, the writing sucks. So, wow, we're deep. So, the whole point is know when a trope will work, deploy it intelligently, subvert it, have fun, be weird, and they're just shortcuts at the end of the day. So, next week, we are going to be talking about what happens when you start your book in the wrong place. And, what can you do? Do you walk away? Do you try to fix it? Do you just run screaming naked into the woods? I don't recommend that at this time of the year in many parts of this country and others.
Yeah, it's nice in the summer.
To our Australian listeners, perhaps it's the right time. But until then, you can find us on all the socials. We are Badlit Friends everywhere. We are on Blue Sky, Terrible Threads, Instagram. We are on YouTube. Please give us some more reviews. Please listen to our awesome interview with Jessica Lunt, which dropped last week. It's so good. And please buy her book. And anything else?
I got nothing.
So until next time, we will see you then.
Bye.